I closed the folder slowly and slid it back into the drawer, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like the house could hear it. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the familiar bookshelf across the room. Family photos lined the shelves, me at 5 years old with missing teeth. Me at high school graduation, me smiling beside my mother at every milestone. In every picture, she had her arm around me, her grip firm, possessive. Back then, I thought it meant love. Now it felt like proof of ownership. When my mother came home later that evening, she was in a good mood. She always was when she felt in control. She set her purse down neatly, glanced at me, and smiled as if nothing in the world were wrong. "You look tired," she said casually. "Working too hard again?" I nodded, something like that. She moved into the kitchen, humming softly. Already talking about a dinner party she was planning and how important it was for me to network with the right people. I listened, silent, watching her the way one watches a stranger alert, cautious, noticing details you once ignored. Every word she spoke carried an invisible weight now. Every suggestion sounded like a command. Every compliment felt conditional. During dinner, she brought up my new job offer. "Austin is too far," she said, stirring her soup. "Seattle is where your roots are, where your responsibilities are." "Responsibilities?" I asked carefully. She looked up, surprised by my tone. "Family responsibilities, Lauren. You know that. After everything I've done." There it was, the familiar line, the sentence that had shaped my entire life. "I was just thinking," I said slowly, "about how much you've done for me." Her expression softened, satisfied. "I'm glad you finally see that." I forced a smile, but inside something hardened. She didn't see me as a daughter grateful for love. She saw me as a return on investment. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom, I stared at the ceiling, replaying moments from my past. The scholarships I didn't apply for because she said I wasn't ready. The apartment I never rented because she said it was unsafe. The relationships I let fade because she disapproved. None of those choices had felt forced at the time. That was the most terrifying part. I realized then that the most dangerous cages aren't built with locks. They're built with guilt. By morning, I had made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. I wouldn't explode or accuse or demand answers. My mother thrived on emotional chaos. She used it to regain control. Instead, I would do what she never expected. I would prepare, quietly, carefully, and when the time came, I would walk away not as the ungrateful daughter she liked to portray, but as a woman who finally understood the truth. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my life. For the next few weeks, I played my role perfectly. I listened when my mother talked. I nodded when she offered advice I hadn't asked for. I let her believe I was still dependent, still unsure, still the obedient daughter who needed her approval to breathe. Inside, however, something had shifted. I was no longer reacting. I was observing. Evelyn noticed the change, even if she didn't understand it. "You've been very quiet lately," she said one evening as we sat in the living room, the television murmuring in the background. "You're not hiding something from me, are you?" I smiled lightly. "Just thinking about my future." She relaxed instantly. The word future always soothed her as long as she believed she owned it. A few days later, I requested access to our family's financial records under the pretense of learning basic money management. Looked pleased, almost proud. "It's about time," she said. "You've relied on me long enough." The irony almost made me laugh. When she handed me the documents, she did so with confidence, never imagining I would understand what I was looking at. She underestimated me the way she always had, by assuming dependence meant incompetence. It didn't take long to see the pattern: withdrawals from my trust fund dating back years, transfers labeled vaguely intentionally, payments that had nothing to do with my education or healthcare, renovations to the house, vacations I never attended, investments that had only her name attached. She hadn't just used my money. She had built her entire lifestyle on it. The realization hurt more than I expected, not because of the money, but because of what it meant. My mother hadn't been struggling. She hadn't been sacrificing. She had been choosing herself while teaching me that selflessness was my duty alone. That night, I made my first appointment with a financial attorney. Sitting in that quiet office explaining my situation to a stranger felt surreal. I half expected to be told I was overreacting, that it was normal, that I was being dramatic. Instead, the attorney frowned. "What you're describing," she said carefully, "is financial abuse." The word echoed in my head long after I left. Abuse. Not love, not protection, abuse. I began documenting everything, scanning files, taking notes, backing up records. Meanwhile, she grew more ambitious. She started talking about our next phase, about how we should consolidate assets. About opening accounts in my name for tax purposes, about how lucky I was to have a mother who handled these things for me. Each suggestion was another rope, and I was done being tied. I accepted the job in Austin that same week. I didn't celebrate. I didn't tell anyone. I simply signed the offer letter and saved it to a secure folder. At night, I lay awake wondering how someone who claimed to love me could fear my independence so deeply. But one thing was clear now. My mother didn't want me free, and that meant freedom was exactly what I needed. The more independent I became on the inside, the more my mother tightened her grip on the outside. It started subtly. She began asking where I was going, who I was meeting, how long I would be out, questions disguised as concern. If I answered vaguely, her tone sharpened. "You're acting distant," she said one morning while sipping her coffee. "I hope you're not forgetting who's always been there for you." I apologized automatically, then caught myself. The apology felt wrong, like muscle memory from a life I was trying to leave behind. Instead of pulling away, I leaned in. I asked her questions about her finances, about past decisions, about why certain accounts were structured the way they were. Each time, she answered with confidence, never realizing she was filling in the gaps of a story that would soon be told in court. I learned how carefully she had crafted her narrative. She wasn't just controlling me. She was controlling how others saw us. To friends, she was the devoted widow. To relatives, the selfless mother. To me, the silent authority that didn't need to raise its voice to be obeyed. Behind that image was fear. The day she proposed opening a line of credit in my name, something inside me went cold. "It's just temporary," she said lightly. "Your credit is excellent. Mine is complicated." I looked at her and finally understood. She wasn't planning for my future. She was planning to use it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, surrounded by documents, timelines, and notes, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: clarity. Not anger, not hatred. Resolve. I contacted my attorney again. This time, we talked strategy, about timing, about evidence, about how public exposure changes power dynamics. "You need to choose when control shifts," she told me. "Because once it does, there's no going back." I knew exactly when. My mother was hosting her annual charity luncheon in 3 weeks. It was her pride and joy, a room full of donors, community leaders, and women who admired her strength. She wanted to be seen. So did the truth. In the meantime, I prepared my exit. I secured housing in Austin. I arranged for my salary to go into a new account under my sole control. I locked down my credit. I gathered every piece of proof that showed a pattern, not a mistake. My mother noticed my calm. "You seem lighter," she said one evening. "It's nice to see you finally trusting me." I smiled to myself. Trust wasn't what she was seeing. It was detachment. For the first time, I could imagine a life where my decisions weren't filtered through guilt, where love didn't come with conditions, where I didn't have to earn my right to exist. I wasn't running away. I was walking towards something she could never give me: freedom. And when the moment came, she wouldn't see it coming. Because the people who believe they own, you never notice when you stop asking permission. The charity luncheon was exactly as my mother wanted it to be: perfect. Crystal glasses lined white closed tables. Soft music floated through the ballroom. Evelyn moved from guest to guest, smiling, laughing, accepting praise like it was oxygen. I stood at her side, quiet and composed, the image of a grateful daughter. No one noticed the tension beneath my calm. They couldn't hear my heart pounding as I checked the time. 12:45. Right on schedule. When the attorney approached our table, my mother's smile didn't falter at first. She assumed he was another donor, another admirer, another person drawn to the story she had carefully constructed over the years. He leaned down and spoke quietly. "Mrs. Harper, you've been served." For half a second, she didn't understand. Then she saw the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she took it. I had never seen her hands shake before. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice tight. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. As she scanned the first page, the color drained from her face. The words unauthorized. Use of funds and breach of fiduciary. Responsibility seemed to leap off the paper. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp with disbelief. "You did this?" she hissed. I met her gaze steadily. "You taught me to be prepared." Around us, conversations slowed. People sensed something was wrong. Evelyn tried to recover, forcing a smile, but it cracked under pressure. "This is a misunderstanding," she said too loudly. "My daughter is confused." I stood then, my voice calm but clear. "I'm not confused. I'm informed." The room went silent. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her emotionally. I simply stated facts: how my trust fund had been drained, how accounts were opened without my consent, how my financial future had been leveraged without my knowledge. Every sentence stripped away another layer of her image. Evelyn tried to interrupt, but the attorney stepped forward, confirming every claim. This wasn't a family argument. It was a legal reality. My mother's eyes darted around the room, searching for allies. She found none. People looked uncomfortable, embarrassed, uncertain, like witnesses to something they were never meant to see. "How could you humiliate me like this?" she whispered when the room began to buzz again. I leaned closer. "You taught me that public image matters. I'm just telling the truth where it can't be ignored." She didn't cry. Not really. She froze. And in that moment, I understood something important. Control only works when silence protects it. As I walked out of the ballroom, I felt no triumph, no revenge, just release. Outside, the air felt lighter, cleaner. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying her expectations on my back. Behind me, Evelyn Harper's perfect world was collapsing, not because I destroyed it, but because it was built on something that couldn't survive exposure, and I was finally done being invisible. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. There was no dramatic courtroom spectacle. No public apology, no emotional reconciliation. My mother's lawyers advised a private settlement almost immediately. The evidence was too clear, the paper trail too detailed. Fighting it would have meant risking criminal charges. More importantly for her, complete public ruin. Evelyn Harper chose silence. The house was sold within months. The proceeds were divided according to the settlement, with my trust fund restored as much as possible. What couldn't be returned was compensated in other ways: accounts transferred, assets liquidated, control relinquished. For the first time, the balance of power shifted permanently. We did not speak, not because I was angry, but because distance was necessary. Some relationships cannot be healed without destroying yourself in the process. I finally understood. The forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. I moved to Austin in early spring. My new apartment overlooked the river, sunlight pouring in every morning like a promise. I set up my life from scratch, new routines, new friendships, new boundaries. I opened my own accounts, made my own plans, signed my own name. The job was demanding, but fulfilling. For the first time, my success belonged to me alone. No one tracked it. No one claimed it. No one reminded me what I owed. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about my mother, about how fear had shaped her, about how control had become her language of love. I felt sadness, but not regret, because understanding someone does not require surrendering to them. Months later, I received a single email from her. "I hope you're happy. I did what I thought was best. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I am happy, and I'm finally doing what's best for me. That was the last message we ever exchanged. Today, my life is quiet in the best way. I make decisions without asking permission. I choose relationships that don't come with conditions. I trust myself. What I learned is simple, but painful. Love that demands control isn't love, it's fear wearing a mask. Walking away didn't make me heartless. It made me whole. The girl who once believed she owed her existence to someone else grew into a woman who understood. Her worth was never a debt, and that was the real freedom.